Don't bore us, get to the chorus. That's Bon Jovi in a nutshell.
Slippery When Wet was definitely the golden era, because that was when the huge sudden impact of Bon Jovi spread smiles around the world.
Well, I'm a cowboy, and on a steel horse I ride, wanted dead or alive.
John finally got who his audience was, and he played to it. It was one-stop shopping. It was the power ballads. It rocked a little bit. It was fun.
They did break the mold for a lot of what was happening in the metal scene, and they just kind of brought it to a more of a mainstream audience and made metal and rock a more credible genre.
The songs that filled stadiums all are these big, 100%, no shades of grey anthems.
They kept coming back with great songs, they kept coming back with great albums, and they kept coming back with great tours.
Bon Jovi absolutely are a brand. It's been a huge corporate business for over 20 years. Everything runs like clockwork.
They've circled the globe 15 times, played in front of tens of millions of people, and they continue to be successful around the world.
Bon Jovi had a lot of different influences. I mean, Richie Sambora has said, you know, that he loved stuff like Van Halen and Kiss. And then John Bon Jovi, obviously, he's coming from a slightly different background with, I mean, he's always said that Bruce Springsteen was a massive influence.
John Bon Jovi was born and brought up in New Jersey, as was David Bryan. John had several groups growing up. Probably the most famous was Atlantic City Expressway, which was an R&B band that David was also in.
He did come from I suppose, a semi-musical background. He was always surrounded by music. Apparently, he used to bunk off school to play in little bands, and he had friends that were like small-town musicians. And his cousin as well owned a recording studio in New Jersey that was, you know, used by a lot of people, called the Power Station.
John spent 2 years there, just basically doing menial chores, sleeping on the floors, and when there was some dead studio time, he would record some demos with whichever musicians might happen to be hanging about.
I was working at the Power Station recording studios then, on staff. So John said, hey, can I record my band? And they were in there recording pretty much demos for their band. And they entered a song into a battle of the bands, Runaway. They won the contest.
The fluke was, it was New York City, and I was getting airplay in New York City without a record deal or a manager or even a band at that point. And then the station was owned by a chain, and that chain picked up the song.
Runaway started getting played all over America, which led then to a bidding war involving a lot of the companies that had turned down the demo in the first place. So it ended up between Atlantic and Polygram, and Bon Jovi signed to Polygram and then had to find a band.
John started the band with David Rashbaum, or David Bryan, I think is his name now, the keyboard player.
Great, great, great keyboard player. Synthesizer, used to write musicals, the Memphis musical. He's a very well-rounded instrumentalist.
Alec John Such was 10 years older than John when the group started out, and he had a background in session work, and he played in lots of covers bands around New Jersey.
Tico the drummer, fantastic drummer, you know, a big brute of a guy who really knows how to lay down a beat.
Here's a guy who's played on so many albums previous to the Bon Jovi call in '83. Pat Benatar, Alice Cooper, Stevie Nicks.
Richie Sambora had a group called Mercy, which was at one time signed to Led Zeppelin's Swan Song label. And when he first saw Bon Jovi, who at that time had Dave Sabo, the first Bon Jovi guitarist, Richie Sambora turned up in Chicago to see them play, and went up and told John that he had the wrong guitarist and that he, Richie, should take the job.
Without Richie Sambora, Bon Jovi would never become successful. The secret of Richie has always been his respect for a song. He doesn't overplay. It's what he doesn't play that says more about Richie than what he does.
His solos are well framed and don't go over the top in sense of they finish when it's time to finish kind of thing.
He is one of those pioneering guitarists. You know, he's not afraid to do something that's a little bit unusual. He's not afraid to bring in, say, for example, an acoustic guitar into a metal song, which, you know, you just didn't do that. He's not afraid to say, well, you know, let's see how this sounds. I think this would sound good this way.
Richie has always been John's sidekick. He's the guy that John's lent on a hell of a lot, because the other guys in the band, although they're very important, are very much in the background.
It's the formula, it's the chemistry that works. You put these guys who are good at what they do together, and suddenly they're making hits.
From the very beginning, John Bon Jovi led from the front. I mean, he's a great leader. He's a very savvy character. He'd given the band his own name. It's his band. And nothing went through that John would not have personally okayed.
The debut album came right out of left center. I mean, at the time of Kiss and the hair bands, here's another kid from New Jersey like Springsteen, and they took a lot of people by surprise.
At the time, they just wanted to have a hit, and anything, whatever it took to have a hit is what they would do. They were really excited to be in the studio, and things were sounding good, and they were getting some notice, and everybody was happy about that.
They were really a perfectly proficient rock band, maybe verging a little towards A&R in some parts and towards rock and roll in other parts. But, you know, some of the material was really quite ordinary. They were still finding their feet, and John Bon Jovi himself hadn't quite settled into an individual vocal style yet.
I mean, I still love Bon Jovi, the first album. I think it's a great record because of its just youthful exuberance, you know, but you listen to it in context and you think, bloody hell, you know, how did this guy get a record deal with a voice like that? Down the line, it's more cultured, you know, he's a lot more assured, and, you know, I mean, and these days, he uses his voice brilliantly.
Well, Roulette is a fairly ordinary rock song, really. Love Lies is a pretty pedestrian ballad. On the other hand, the last 3 songs of the album, which are co-writes, John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora, the great team to be, those are pretty up-tempo, pretty likeable rock and roll songs.
At the time, we were just going for the best rock pop sound that we could, and Tony Bon Jovi and Lance Quinn were producing, and we were just going for make it sound like a hit.
Probably one of the best indications of where they could go is with Shot Through the Heart, which has all those sort of dramatic contrasts and bursts of power, and then there's Runaway, which is really the standout track.
The first time I heard of Bon Jovi, it was that jangly piano on Runaway.
In the very early days, they hadn't quite got the glam rock thing down yet. They hadn't really gone into hair rock or poodle cuts or whatever you want to call it. They had long hair. They still looked very masculine, very rock.
The early John Bon Jovi albums, the sort of Fahrenheit and obviously the eponymous Bon Jovi, they've got a very different sound from Slippery When Wet. I mean, they're more kind of, I suppose hard rock is the word that would have been used at the time. It was a kind of a sleazier sound. It wasn't as kind of directional as Slippery When Wet, which was all sort of much more tightly packaged.
The album itself, it settled just outside the top 40 in America, got to number 71 in this country. So that was very, very encouraging indeed for the band and for the record company. So there were great hopes for the next album.
The Sophomore album is always really, really difficult. Everybody wants it to be the best thing going. They want to make sure that it's not a flash in the pan. And it didn't quite match up to everyone's expectations.
7800 Fahrenheit is probably one of the worst albums released by a rock band in the 80s. It nearly finished Bon Jovi's career. It effectively killed off the idea they had of being the masters of their own destiny and being a real heavy rock band.
They were looking for something to call their own, and they were testing out different waters, but not really getting the result they wanted.
You've got to transport yourself back to what was actually happening in the music industry at that crucial stage of the 80s, sort of 84, 85, just before Slippery When Wet came out in 86. Rock was not really that big. It was still seen as a thing that, you know, perhaps old bikers listened to, or, you know, old men with long hair or whatever, and adolescent teenage boys. So rock as a genre wasn't all that cool back then.
The ingredients were there. You know, the ingredients that make Bon Jovi popular are the fact that they've got this very good-looking guy fronting the band. He sings really well, he looks great. If you see them on stage, it really is a completely different experience. They really have got that amazing American bar band thing of really being able to put on a show. They just didn't have the songs on 7800 Fahrenheit.
It seems to be absolutely the most out-of-whack album of their early days.
It wasn't terrible, but I think there was that time where he just sort of reached a plateau and didn't know where to go from there. So had to put out an album. I think he gave it a good shot. I just don't think it was him at the top of his game.
There was a real lack of any thread of continuity. There was no, it didn't really hang together that well, the album, I think, although there were some very good tracks that I think people forget quite often.
It was a very interesting attempt that these guys made at trying to be along the lines of a Springsteen-esque epic story that they could write inside of 5.5 minutes in a song, complete with Japanese language intro and cutting into the usual Bon Jovi formula of pop, hard metal, ballad, chorus, bridge, and all that kind of stuff, and catchy lyrics.
It was probably inspired by their experiences touring in Japan. Probably the heart of the song is the red light passage, which is where this sort of thunderous rock sound disappears to be replaced with all sorts of atmospheric noises. And then, of course, the band burst back in to gallop on to the last post, but probably works better live than it does on the record, really. It's a very good live song, and it survived into the set for quite a long time.
You could detect little glimpses of some polish on the approach to the arrangements of the songs, and maybe a little bit more focused songwriting.
It's quite a dark album in many ways. Some quite sad songs on it, and some quite soul-searching songs on it. Very much about being on the road, the loneliness, the temptations of being on the road. And whereas the first album was all about love and lust, this was about love and lust, but in the light of the road. Lots of one-night stands, infidelities, and relationship breakups.
When the sun appears, well, there's nothing left but goodbye. Well, just turn and walk away. How could we let it end like this? Just turn and walk away. We'll set the ceiling with a kiss.
Silent Night is the song that really details John Bon Jovi's own bust-up with his girlfriend. It's a very, very honest song, and it's delivered very powerfully.
Certainly the Fahrenheit album, yes, it went gold in America. It didn't do so well over here, but there was a single that came off it. They were getting some exposure in the rock magazines.
It hadn't pleased rock fans, it hadn't pleased pop fans, it hadn't sold as well as the first album.
John himself even said it wasn't as good as it could be. So back to the drawing board.
It was all so simple.
500,000 sales, a lot of groups would be very happy with, but in terms of international breakthrough, it wasn't quite what was expected from the record company, and so there was a lot of pressure on the group at this point.
So suddenly they had to think clearly. They had to be really sure about what they were doing next. They had to make absolutely sure they got it right. And if there was a positive side to the second album, it was that they made damn sure the third album was everything the second album wasn't. So they had great songs, bang, 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 all the way through the album. And if that meant bringing in other people to help them write them, so be it. If that meant listening to the producer and him saying, that's rubbish, that guitar solo doesn't work, let's bang in another chorus, so be it.
What they did with Slippery When Wet is design an album. They got a guy called Bruce Fairbairn who understood about commercial sounds. They worked with people like Desmond Child who understood exactly how to co-write hit songs. And they came up with a formula. And I don't mean formula in terms of completely sublimating their own instincts and spontaneity. But what they did was take what they had, but put it into a mainstream commercial phenomenon.
Slippery When Wet had an overall sound to it that was powerful and just meaty, and which I think you have to give a lot of credit to the producer Bruce Fairbairn for. That was the first album he worked with Bon Jovi, and I think he made a real difference.
You really can't go wrong with an album like that that spawns 3 hit singles, 2 number ones. The other one cracked the top 10. This was unheard of at the time for a rock band, a first. And the album sold 12 million copies.
In songs like You Give Love a Bad Name, Living on a Prayer, they had these built to be hit songs which absolutely did the job. They worked as rock songs, but more importantly for the group, they worked as hits. You didn't have to be a heavy metal fan or a rock fan to love those songs.
Without Desmond Child, I really do not think that Slippery When Wet would have been the success that it was. He is the one who's co-written all of the big singles that came off that album. Now, that's not to say that John and Richie's writing style isn't any good, because, yeah, it is good, but it was Desmond Child who sort of sat them down, and it's almost like he was the one that came up with these pop hooks and a way of making rock music more accessible to a much wider audience.
The lyrics are very upbeat, very hopeful, very off the street, things that people could relate to. The songs and the melodies were very much punch the air. And they also had the other trick. They picked up a female audience without upsetting their male following.
It was almost like a crossover album. And I don't even think Bon Jovi knew at the time what they were actually doing with it. I don't think they understood. It was a big risk that they took. And, oh my God, it paid off.
If one song made them, I suppose that was it. It really is your actual rock anthem. One of the things about it that gave it some substance, which they didn't have previously, was the fact that it told a story and that they actually created a couple of characters, this Tommy and Gina, the Hard Times young couple.
It involves these characters that kind of like a Springsteen song, you know, run away together, chase the impossible dream. There's that whole kind of longing to it, which everybody can relate to, particularly teenagers, people starting out at the beginning of their journey.
Bon Jovi, not knowing it, lived vicariously through that song. He's still with his high school sweetheart. He's had some ups, He's had some downs, but they still have each other.
It was just kind of like a locomotive chugging out of the station and just got up to full-blown speed. And I think the talk box, which Sambora brought in, which was a brilliant little move since it was, you know, on the stage with Peter Frampton so many years previous. All of the combination of those elements made it just a fantastic song. #1 hit, boom.
It was one of the first songs that actually Sambora and John started writing with Desmond Child, and it's got that real Desmond Child stamp on it. It is a reworking of a hard rock song with a sort of a pop formula. You know, you've got these great verses, you've got this real sing-along chorus, and you've got these fantastic production effects.
It's just an excellent piece of craftsmanship and delivery too. Delivery with great spirit, of course. The band clearly have their share of the credit as well. They've got hold of a song that could do the job for them, but they'd also were working with people who might just be able to help them get the breakthrough that they needed.
John and Richie, when they write their songs, they write them on acoustic guitars to begin with, so it's not a difficult thing for them to strip them down and perform them acoustically, as they did with Living on a Prayer on MTV. By some accounts, this was actually the trigger for MTV's Unplugged series.
Living on a Prayer is this working class story. It's this big anthem. You Give Love a Bad Name is just a dirty rock ballad.
You Give Love a Bad Name became very symbolic of everything that they came to represent. It was a rock song, so, you know, long-haired teenage boys could get off on it. It was incredibly catchy, so, you know, girls could relate to it in the same way they could any other pop song by Duran Duran or Wham. And it kind of showcased the band.
The fist puncher, it's got the hook, it's got the chorus, you can sing along to it. We've all been there lyrically in some shape or form. It's a universal type rocker that 20 to 50,000 people can sing in a stadium, no problem.
It's a little bit raunchy, it's a little bit sleazy, it's a little bit dirty. It's how rock music should be.
It's just a really powerful piece of fairly dumb but straight ahead rock that does the job.
Wanted Dead or Alive is probably Bon Jovi's signature song. It's not my personal favourite, I must admit, but people love it and they play it wherever they go, and it's just immediately identifiable Bon Jovi.
Of course, it is a slightly different sound for Bon Jovi, so in that sense, on the album, it's a bit of a relief, and Richie Sambora's able to play a slightly different kind of guitar and song, which he's well able to. He's a tremendously versatile and very able and creative guitarist, I think. But so he does get a bit of a chance to do something different there.
It's all a shame. Only I need to change every day. The singing ground we're still away. Another place where the faces are so cold. Each time all night to get back home. Well, I'm a cowboy, and on a steel horse I ride. Want it dead or alive.
That was quite an acoustic song. It was one of these songs that, you know, you could do unplugged, and it was, I always thought it was a little bit haunting.
John and Richie wrote that song on their own. It's a very mysterious sounding kind of cinematic song. And I think that John tends to use the idea of the cowboy riding into town as a kind of metaphor for the rock star experience. You know, the cowboy would come in, all guns blazing on the horses, kiss all the women and fight all the men, as he would put it. And for him, the whole rock tour experience was similar.
Because of the way the song builds up, you know, he's trying to liken himself as the lone rock star to some lone cowboy. And it remains one of the best songs, I think, that Bon Jovi have ever written. So good that they even rewrote it as Blaze of Glory.
Coming out with a single, I Wanted Her Alive, it showed a diversity to Bon Jovi's style. It showed that they weren't just a one-hit wonder. It showed that they didn't just write one particular type of song. It showed that they could do lots of different things.
Slippery When Wet was maybe not the peak of their career, but definitely the golden era, because that was when the huge sudden impact of Bon Jovi spread smiles around the world. Everybody looks back on that period, and those singles are indelibly remembered.
That could have been, at the time, the template for what would have made the ultimate 80s rock album.
It kind of propelled them from being this band that was vaguely known on the heavy rock scene to suddenly household names. I mean, you know, I remember switching on the TV back around the time Slippery When Wet came out, 86, you know, into 87 as well. And John Bon Jovi was everywhere.
Well, John Bon Jovi, with the great hair and the great looks, I mean, he's a good-looking kid from New Jersey. I mean, boom, those combinations right there make him really great on the screen. MTV at the time was just starting to pound out stuff, and absolutely that would help album sales.
There's a lot of people who will tell you that New Jersey is actually a much better album than Slippery, and I'd probably agree with them. The crucial difference was, in the 2 years between the albums, CDs had suddenly become really big business. So now, instead of concentrating on a 10-track LP with side 1 and side 2, which is how they sequenced and formatted Slippery, they've suddenly thinking of CDs. There's no longer a side 1 and a side 2. You've suddenly got extra space to do extra tracks. So suddenly you've now got more tracks, more time, and also because they'd had such a huge success, more money spent on it.
Same producer, same assistants on writing the crack songs, or some of the crack songs, in Desmond Child. And the band all fired up ready to go.
It was very much go in there and let's make the sequel.
And the cover kind of was neat, but inside, and this is what this band is all about, it's the music, it's not the album covers. It was definitely a worthy successor. The production was top rates. Again, the formula was there. The hooks, the choruses, the big Bon Jovi sound, the driving backbeats.
Lay Your Hands on Me kind of replaced You Give Love a Bad Name as the ultimate opener of a concert for Bon Jovi. It gave them a new way to start the show. It had this very moody beginning, went on for days, and then suddenly, of course, it explodes into this huge chorus, and the curtains would come back, and the lights would go off, and bingo, we're off and running.
There it goes again. Yes, it's Bon Jovi, and Lay Your Hands on Me.
Bombastic, ballsy, a typical Bon Jovi song for those in a stadium with 20, 30, 40,000 people who can fist punch in the air and go, hey!
If you saw them on the Slippery When Wet tour in '86 and '87, you know, I remember walking through a crowd with John on that tour backstage somewhere, and people just wanted to touch his hair, touch his clothes, his feet, his aura, anything. I mean, it was everywhere he went, there were people, you know, and I think it's fairly easy to see where he got the imaginative idea to do a song called Lay Your Hands on Me.
It's anthemic in the way it's presented. He's got great lyrics for it, and it's just that, you know, he's shouting out loud, and he's just, you know, look, lay your hands on me, and he's shouting to the world, and he wants them to come along for the ride. I think it's a very well-crafted song.
Desmond Child co-wrote most of New Jersey as well. Bad Medicine is a fantastic single. Again, it's harking back to the sound of You Give Love a Bad Name, with that kind of dirty sound, with the shouty vocals and stuff.
It's almost a rewrite, you know, Your Love is Like Bad Medicine. And before that it was You Give Love a Bad Name. They're very, very similar songs, they're quite formulaic, but I wouldn't say that it makes them particularly stick out as cliched examples of what the group do. It was another huge hit for them.
It's a great stomping rocker. Nothing original about it, except it just works. It's a great riff and it hammers it out.
The first time I heard that song, I thought, maybe I need some good medicine to get through the song. And then I listened to it a little bit more closely, and you know, it's not that bad. It's very formula. He's done it before.
It's not, again, Dylan or Shakespeare, but it's one of those things that you can sing along to, air punch, do the dashboard drumming thing in your car, or wherever you happen to be, grab that hairbrush and just sing along to it. It works.
Bon Bon Jovi are one of these diverse bands that they just seem to be able to do any kind of song. They can go from the heavy rock through to this kind of power ballad. And I mean, it's interesting that as Bon Jovi, a band, has carried on throughout the years, they've kind of lent a little bit more towards these sort of power ballads. And, you know, there's a big audience for these kind of songs.
I'll Be There For You is a moment in the concerts where you pull out your Bic lighter. Now you pull out your cell phone, but you flash the Bic lighter up and you start swaying your hands. They love it. People love that.
It's slower, it's quieter, it's a bit more ruminative, and the melody actually has some nice little twists to it, which make you think, well, they do have a wider range of melodic gifts than they normally reveal. Another thing about that track, I think, is that it's another of those occasions where, if you're willing to listen to Richie Sambora, he's showing what a clever accompanist he is, helping Bon Jovi, backing Bon Jovi in the full sense of the word, rather than just exercising his ego.
They ended up releasing something like 5 or 6 singles from that album in the end, and it kind of ushered in this whole era where they really were Bon Jovi the brand as opposed to the band.
And then of course they went out on this tour, which was very tough for them. It was just an unending tour that ground them down and ground them down, and nearly ended up finishing them after 4 albums. It was very tough.
What you've got to remember about Bon Jovi is pretty much from 1983 to 1989, they were working non-stop. Touring, recording, they got into a cycle. It was desperately tough, but that's what John wanted to do. And you imagine what a band is like. Most bands go on the road, and within 3 or 4 months, they're starting to see the negative aspects of each other. They hate each other. They can't live with each other. And that's what Bon Jovi were facing in '89.
We were becoming a business.
No.
And it wasn't like, let's sit around and churn out hits, but it was, well, we have to go to this shareholders meeting. And we'd sit around and go, what? And it became a drag at the end of the tour. Not during the tour, but after it.
Yeah.
That it was like, we have to go talk about deals now, and we have to do this in our management deal and our record deal and our... And everybody just sat around going, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore.
No.
You know, let's not. So I wanted to stay together, but only if it's fun.
There were a lot of rumours going around at the time, certainly that I remember, of Bon Jovi having split up, because John Bon Jovi had gone on to do his solo stuff, Blaze of Glory, and he'd done the Young Guns and all that. And I think a lot of people were looking at it thinking, oh, hello, there's a split. They've had their big album, they've had loads of big singles, so in fact they'd had 2 big albums, and this must now mean that the band has split up.
But they were apart from each other. They could explore different aspects and avenues of their musicianship, especially John and Richie. And it was also a break which happened at a time when the era Bon Jovi represented, the hair metal era, was imploding. It was starting to fall apart at the seams. And by not being on the scene as Bon Jovi, in a way, Bon Jovi separated themselves off from what was going on. So they could come back in '92 with a different type of album, and nobody said, oh, failure, anachronism, band of the 80s, we don't need them in the 90s at all.
The early 90s was a difficult period for any band who'd been a huge success and had a lot of hair, you know, in 1989. Because obviously the onset of grunge came in and gave corporate rock a damn good kicking, and most people will agree that corporate rock needed a damn good kicking. And because it made everybody buck their ideas up.
You know, I want there to be another album, absolutely. Yeah. You know, I want it to be bigger and better than we've ever been.
What Bon Jovi did was kind of reinvent themselves. They got rid of the makeup, got rid of the spangly clothes, cut all their hair. John lost the poodle haircut, which everybody had known him for many years. And they did do some really good songs. They still kept some of the same outside writers. They still kept churning out the hits. But it was a kind of a confused period for them where they were neither fish nor fowl. They weren't what they'd been in the 80s, and they certainly weren't Nirvana.
So they came back with Keep Faith, and they had changed their style somewhat, but they're still big rockers that would have sounded good if John had had big hair or short hair on the record.
It was almost like they'd stripped down some of the raw rock elements that you'd heard in albums like Slippery When Wet, but they kind of brought in a slightly more kind of rock and roll vibe, so it was something that sounded more old school rather than a raw rock sound.
With Keep the Faith, the sound just isn't so monolithic as it was on the previous two albums. There is a range of stuff, and I'll Sleep When I'm Dead, which is another Desmond Child co-write, actually is Bon Jovi moving into funk metal to a degree, and as far as I'm concerned, it did work.
Sleep When I'm Dead puts a smile on your face. I mean, Bon Jovi can't perform it without smiling. You know, you can't listen to it without smiling. It's like Love for Sale off of New Jersey, or, you know, I mean, it's these... They can do it, but it leans towards the throwaway compared with some of the more earnest sort of songs that they do.
And it's really basically saying, you know what? I want to party, I want to work, I want to enjoy life. Sleep? Nah. So do I. I'll sleep when I'm dead. It became such a great line because it really represented the ethos and ethics of John Bon Jovi himself more than anything else. I want to do everything. Life is about living. This ain't a dress rehearsal, so get on with it.
Because of the different range of material on there, that it did decidedly step away from the formula that they'd established with the previous two albums. It did have something going for it, I think.
Bed of Roses is one of those songs that proves, you know, that Bon Jovi pen really catchy material, you know, and that's what hooks in huge amounts of fans.
Dream about movies that won't make me when I'm dead.
Bed of Roses is John and Sambora leaning a little bit more away from where they came from into the almost contemporary pop area.
It was a beautifully constructed ballad. It was the sort of thing Mariah Carey could sing, sort of thing that Whitney Houston could sing, the sort of thing that Celine Dion could sing, because it had that universal appeal.
You think of the song Bed of Roses, and immediately you got the chorus swirling on a bed. It's just swirling around your head. You know, so you immediately know the song. You know, you might not even be able to say which album it happens to be off, but you know it.
whenever I do hear it, I think, oh, it's Neil Diamond. Whoops, no, it's not. It's John Bon Jovi. So here we do have Bon Jovi actually moving around in terms of vocal style.
He was on the road, really missing his wife, and so he dialed up for a piano on room service, as you do, and decided to go out on the town and get lashed. When he came back, the piano was still there and he sat down and started writing, so it's a very personal ballad.
It was a love song. It was a song that really what John had in mind. His wife, Dorothea, his longtime girlfriend, his childhood sweetheart. It was him expressing in a way how much he loved her, how much he cared about her, and how passionate he was about having her in his life.
Keep the Faith was clearly a disappointment to Bon Jovi's hardcore American fans. It didn't sell as well there as the previous two. However, it certainly did sell better in other countries around the world. It did very well in UK and around Europe and so on. So essentially it did reach a different audience for them.
My name is Jim, where did I go wrong? My life's a bargain basement, all the good is gone. I just can't want a job, where do I belong? I was sleeping in my car, my dreams moved on.
Someday I'll Be Saturday Night was a song that they wrote for the Crossroads album, which in 1994 was the best of Bon Jovi. There were two unreleased tracks on there, Always and Someday I'll Be Saturday Night.
This is a perfect example of John being able to link with his fans. He knows that they're in probably dead-end jobs, working 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, and they live for that Saturday night when they go and see Bon Jovi in concert. It's not that cliched or see-through, because he probably was exactly the same when he was younger.
They name these characters, these people who are in hard times, who have their Monday, but they want to be Saturday night is the image.
I actually think that's John Bon Jovi making a fair attempt at being a decent songwriter. It's not a self-conscious ballad, it's not a self-conscious rocker. It's catchy, but it's also meant to be a bit reflective, a bit mature, a sign of the more mature John Bon Jovi of the 90s.
Okay, it's a little bit slow during the verses, but then it kind of reaches this great crescendo that you just want to wave your arms around to and just jump up and down in the air. And I mean, any song that makes an audience react with some kind of emotion is going to be a popular one.
This is one of the new tracks that was on the greatest hits, and it probably could have gone on any other Bon Jovi album and really, really worked. I don't think it's a filler, it's just repackaged.
Always was the ballad, the big ballad on Crossroads. It was actually written for a movie, Romeo's Bleeding, and they wrote it, Bon Jovi wrote the song for the film, saw the film, thought it was rubbish and refused to let the song go in there. So they put it on Crossroads.
If you want to talk about what the best Bon Jovi ballad of all time is, it's Always. You know, whether you like that song or not, it's a bit like Whitney Houston doing, you know, I Will Always Love You. It's just one of those songs that, love it or hate it, there's not much you can do about it, it just conquers all.
This is a really well-written ballad with a good sentiment that's going to appeal to a lot of people. Okay, and all the people it's going to appeal to, if they're female, or most of them who are female anyway, you know, are probably going to listen to that and dream that John's singing it just to them.
Touch your lips, you hold you near when you say your prayers. Try to understand, I made mistakes, and I'm just a man. When he holds you close, when he pulls you near, when he says the words you've been needing to hear. I wish I were him, those words are mine to say to you till the end of time.
It's one of those songs that gets played an awful lot on the radio because of what it's about, because it's a well-written song and because it's a slushy love ballad.
I'm pleased to hear them using different sounds, drawing in strings, a bit of the cello sound there.
It's got a beautiful melody that sucks you in. The lyrics are very sort of heartfelt, emotional, soulful. They connect with so many different people. You can see couples holding hands and little tears rolling down the face because they're getting people connect with what he's saying. But it's also very big. It's a very big, big song, and I think the great love ballads have to be big because that's the way they spread the emotion. If they're too locked into themselves and they actually could crouch down, people don't get into it.
I'd say that Bon Jovi are a really great rock group with pop sensibilities, and that's the bedrock of the music they make.
Whichever way you look at it, as much as you want to try and ignore Bon Jovi, you can't, because they're such a massive band.
You can imagine perhaps seeing Bon Jovi in a tiny club around the time of the first album, and it just seems odd now, even if you think about it, because they just, you know, everything they do is big.
They kept coming back with great songs, they kept coming back with great albums, and they kept coming back with great tours.
They're just this enormously successful, incredibly competent, slick machine that's just going to go on and on and on for as long as they want to.
It's quite a bit of snobbery about Bon Jovi, I suppose, among certain rock fans that think they're a bit above humming along with a damn good tune, you know, but they always have the last laugh.
They'll never be like Springsteen, and I don't think they've suffered. They've sold 100 million albums. They've traveled the world. They've played in front of so many millions of people. It's just made them become better songwriters and players.